Sam Stein, we have a historian coming on this broadcast who you know named Michael Beschloss, and I plan to ask him this same question. It's one thing to go through a pandemic as a nation. It's quite another to go through as two specific camps and a kind of media industrial complex whose job it is to diminish what we're reporting every day, even though we're reporting health statistics. 1 million people known to have this with a tiny fraction of tests completed. And now the same number as were killed.
We lost Brian there, but Sam, I know where he was heading.
I get the gist of it.
I think. Yeah, I mean, the headwinds in just getting the facts, that people are most hungry for facts.
Well, let me take it a step further. It's not that one camp is trying to diminish the news that's out there. They're trying to create alternative reality. Over the past day or two, Fox News has put on a pair of doctors from California who have done a highly contentious study. It's been highly criticized by fellow physicians, in which they basically said that the actual infection rate for coronavirus is far lower than what every other statistic model shows. And they've been promoted on Fox News and a few right-wing outlets, but nowhere else, in part because their findings have been laughed at by physician organizations. What this ends up doing is it doesn't diminish the actual science. It creates an alternate reality that can be potentially damaging, in which people basically assume that coronavirus is not that lethal, that it's not that infectious, that they can, they may in fact already have antibodies and not know about it, and that they can go out into society and live carefree lives. And that, of course, leads to the possibility that more people get unknowingly infected.
I don't want to let that go. I mean, that is such a frightening prospect, Dr. Bedelia. Can you pick that thread up? I've been reading over the last 12 to 24 hours that the opposite is true, that if you look at the numbers of people who died this year compared to last year, the chances are that we're dramatically undercounting COVID deaths.
Yeah, it's true. And the other thing is COVID pandemic has not ended. We're still in the middle of it. We don't know how many more people may die of this disease. So to compare it to last year's flu season or this year's flu season, which has almost ended, it's not fair. And then the other part is because we have put into place public health restrictions where people are not mingling, actually flu rates have gone down this year. And so we have to take that into account as well, is that there are all these elements. And the part about immunity, WHO came out and actually stressed this, that the studies we have so far, the tests are not very good at yet determining if we have immunity or not. But even beyond that, the numbers that we have right now don't show that we're anywhere near to having enough people having already had this disease that we can freely open up society without the fear that we'll have a lot of people getting sick.
Sam Stein, I watched this White House, and it feels like they skipped chapters 2 to 13, and they're on chapter 14, the reopening. I mean, chapter 2 would be grieving with everyone who's lost so much, family members, loved ones, jobs. Step 3 might be, getting the states everything they need. I mean, what do you make of it's not just Jared Kushner's audacity to say those things on Fox, which I think the spirit of Brian's question was it's certainly safe for them to say anything they want about the pandemic on Fox, because as you point out, an alternate reality is being created. But what do you make of it feels to me like leaving out the middle is going to make it very difficult for them to get anywhere near the end.
Oh, I completely agree. And it's been one of those perplexing political questions. It's just not really the playbook that any other White House would have taken. It's not just jumping to chapter 14. I mean, the president has steadfastly insisted throughout this entire crisis that he bears no responsibility for the shortcomings and all the credit for the gains, which is just a peculiar way to go about the crisis. The only explanation I kind of settle on, well, there's two. One is that Trump is a day trader, as our colleague Joe Scarborough has often said, which is he wants to get through the day with good headlines. The second thing is that he views this in almost strictly electoral terms. And he understands that the key to his success electorally has been a strong economy, which is sort of driving this desire to reopen things up very quickly. Keep in mind, this is the third iteration of our attempt to reopen economy. Trump has floated this idea before. He talked about a great reopening on Easter. And each time he's been sort of reeled back in by the public health experts in his administration. I think that instinct that he has to talk up the economy, to talk up this grand reopening, to say that we're at the end of this, we can see the light at the end of this tunnel, that's all driven from this desire to make sure that his electoral advantage, which was a strong economy, is preserved by the time that November rolls around.
Just to prove that I'm back and can speak and suffered an electronic warble and nothing more, allow me to thank our guests, Dr. Naheed Badalia and Sam Stein. Thank you both.
Glad to see you
very
okay,
much.
Brian.
See, everything works.